Sunday morning news, views, and interviews. Your host, Aaron Mayer, and Magic Mike Ryan on the keyboards. As they say, our digital 21st century. Shout out to brother Joe Condon, Joe the analog Condon. Now we got fully digital brother Mike Ryan. And today, this Sunday morning, our guest is one of our perennial favorites because there's always something happening at the New York State Capitol and the New York State Legislature. We have 108th Assembly District member John T. McDonald III. And John, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy morning. Look, the sun is just rising in the back there. It's about the crack of dawn. But anyway, brother, welcome to News, Views, and Interviews.
Aaron, it's great to be with you. And it's hard to believe you lost an hour of sleep. Your energy is just as good on one less hour. So the benefit for all of us, I guess.
Well, you know, John, it's one of the things that keeps us going and keeps us flying. And but, you know, I had to get you on because there's a lot that's going on with regards to climate legislation. Right now, we're in the height of budget talks and budget negotiations. And one of the things that you right now are championing is something called the Upgrade New York Act. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that piece? Well, before we get into the act, could you tell us a little bit about 108th Assembly District, what cities and towns and counties that it entails?
Sure, yeah. So broadly, the 108th Assembly District is a smidgen of Saratoga County and Waterford, Rensselaer County, and Albany County. In Albany County, it's the northern part, so it's Cohoes, Waterville, and Green Island, where I hail from, Cohoes. And then on the Rensselaer County side, it's East Greenbush, North Greenbush, Rensselaer, and now the whole city of Troy. As you know, in the past, I've also had the honor and privilege of representing the city of Albany, particularly in Arbor Hill, downtown, and in the south end of Albany. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. However, the good news is I still get to work with Albany on a regular basis, and particularly, and I hope we get into this at some point. The Port of Albany, people think the Port of Albany is only in the Port of Albany, but as you know, there's a side on Rensselaer County, which I represent.
Exactly.
So I am still very much committed to the wind energy project that is proposed for the Port of Albany. We know that that's important, and it's Beacon Island, as we've all heard about. And I think we should delve into that at some point. But Upgrade New York, let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, before we get, I got another thing, you know, because you know what happens when when you get in the New York State Assembly member and you see all the crazy stuff that's happening in Congress, because we just came off of that reapportionment, and one of the things that happened was that New York State, the Republicans won their case. It went back and they had to redo districts for assemblymen and senators, as well as Congress. And so districts we lost through gerrymandering. You know, I don't get it. They go, the Democrats gerrymandered us out, but the Republicans got the gerrymandered Democrats out. That was really weird. And we got this guy, George Santos, at the federal level, a guy that literally just ran on the latest politics du jour on the right wing, which is basically lie. You say, don't fake it till you make it, but just lie all the way. Now you can make it. So what does that mean? How does that, you know, are we having a conversation, you know, with the leaders, the state chairman of the Democratic Party on how, you know, on how they fell asleep at the switch? What is going on, man?
Well, this is my opinion. So let's be very clear. First of all, the Assembly actually is going through redistricting again. There have been public hearings. We are required by court to go through another redistricting process. What that looks like, I don't know. I mean, okay. I've offered my views. You know, the district I represent right now, the proposal is actually to move me further into Rensselaer County to the point where I'm almost at the Massachusetts border. As you know, Aaron, you've been around, Ron Canestrari, Mike McDonald, Neil Kelleher.
Yeah.
That's always been the river district. And it's hard to be the river district when you're not near the river anymore. So we shall see what happens there. They're talking about moving member Fahey around over to Rensselaer a little bit, moving member Steck into Saratoga County. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I think the districts where we are is fine. If we change it back to the way it was, I'm fine with that as well. The larger issue, and this is my opinion, I think the legislature as a whole, not John McDonald individually, got greedy with the last redistricting to the point where it was, in the city particularly, almost obnoxiously gerrymandered to the point where it brought a legal challenge that couldn't hold up. We made a procedural issue. We should have made the judge give us a decision. We didn't do that. We just assumed since the commission, independent commission, failed to do their job, which they failed to do, they did not deliver on 2 tries maps. They quit. We should have made the judge force them to do their job, or have the judge force us to do our maps. Instead, we went ahead and did our maps. I think we got a little bit carried away, to be honest with you. And when you yang, you end up yanging, and that's the problem. Is that it ended up getting into a Republican judge's hands. He hired a master who said, "Okay, well, if it's good for the goose, good for the gander." Guess what? They got the last laugh because it played a critical role in the makeup of the U.S. Congress. Didn't change much, really, when you look at the makeup of the legislature. Both the Assembly and the Senate still enjoy a supermajority, but it's hurt us as a nation, from my perspective. And yes, it led to the clown show with George Santos.
Well, the thing is that I don't want to beat you guys up too bad, because I mean, when you look at what's happening in other states where they actually can get carried away. But New York State put something in under Andrew Cuomo, who was really trying, I call like a George Pataki light. He was a Democrat, but he's really a Republican because he did not like the Democratic Party. And he did everything he could to check the power of the Democratic Party in the legislature. So even where he had that IDC. And so one of the things he did before he went out was do that constitutional amendment that really put in changes in the New York State Constitution that made it easy for a challenge that the Republicans made. If there was no constitutional amendment ever, that they would have never won that case, number one. Number two, even with the current changes that they did make, Mr. Jacobs and the Democratic Party, they were supposed to push forward a constitutional amendment to correct the errors of that last constitutional amendment. And the Democratic Party did not push to change it, and they ended up losing it on the ballot. So, I mean, I really think that, there needs to be a conversation with you and the brothers in the legislature with that Democratic state chairman and say, listen, buddy, hasta la vista, because you've cost the state, 2 big times on that constitutional amendment. And the results of that constitutional amendment was we lost and we got shellacked, and it's hurting the country. I mean, I hope this guy isn't back around or isn't seeking to stay around. I mean, I don't know. You guys have to decide that. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well, obviously the Democratic Party makes its own decisions on how it's going to handle things. I have concerns. To be honest with you, we've been more focused on the budget right now because it's the governor's first real whack at doing her own budget, and we've got a lot of work to do. We have a lot of priorities.
She's got some changes of it, right? Didn't she lose her? First Mojica, he went to go to Puerto Rico to head up their fiscal operation. So we lost. He retired, and her new budget lead, she now just recently under investigation had to step down. So this is really a tough time for the legislature. I mean, how is that going to work?
Listen, Bob Megna, who was budget director before, Bob is pretty well known around Albany. He's well respected. He's knowledgeable. Was over at SUNY Albany and Rockefeller. He's stepping back into the role. That's a good steady hand. He knows the lever of government, and we'll go from there. So I think we'll be okay. We'll get through the budget. I just finished another multi-hour conference, and we'll be back at it Sunday night, trying to put together our one house budget resolution. As you know, that's always a statement of priorities, and we in the Assembly always pride ourselves on putting together a balanced, fully funded one house resolution. It'll involve some tax increases that some people will not like, but that's for another day. But I think April 1st will come, and we'll be done pretty much by then.
Do you think we'll be on time?
I do.
Really? Our rumor has you probably about a week or 2 weeks late, but just you're feeling that we're still going to make it.
Yeah, the rumor is that we're going to be late. I don't know if we're there yet. As you know, Aaron, you're a veteran of the budgets more than I have. One of the challenges is today, as we stand here or sit here, the state is seeing record surpluses.
Right.
However, we know that Wall Street is struggling. Personal income tax is going to struggle, and we know that the rich are sometimes less inclined to pay taxes. So we've got to be mindful of that, because that is going to have an impact on our overall operations. I'm not trying to be a prophet for the for the rich. I'm just saying we tax them handsomely, and we need to do that. And if they're not making the bonuses they've made, we're going to have problems supporting the priorities we want to see.
Think this. Why not? Are they going to ever get the stock transfer tax back? I mean, that was one of the biggest things, low hanging fruit that Pataki took away. But I think that there's just like anywhere from $10 to $15 billion on the table right there, just on properly. Like we pay taxes on the groceries that we buy. Why can't they pay taxes on the transaction of stocks? And it was always reliable until it was a giveaway back to the millionaires and billionaires.
As you know, my colleague Phil Steck, that's all he talks about. And there's this talk of the fact that Wall Street might move, and some people say that's not true. And then yesterday, I'm reading an article of Jamie Dimon say that J.P. Morgan Chase loves Texas and Florida. So I don't know what to believe anymore.
Well, listen,
we need to be thoughtful and deliberative.
I would not fall for it. That was almost like GE when we were talking about PCBs and cleaning up the Hudson. And unfortunately, folks fell into that trap. But listen, we got to get a commercial in. We're going to come back at the second half, and we're going to talk about the Upgrade New York Act. Our guest today is John T. McDonald, the third of the 108th Assembly District. We will be right back. Sunday morning news, views, and interviews. Your host, Aaron Mayer, the magic man on the mic, Mike Ryan, our engineer. And our guest today is 108th Assembly District member, New York State, John T. McDonald. And as they say, so goes New York, and California, rest goes to the United States. Because basically, I always tell people, New York State and California pays all of that taxes and all that money. That's what makes states like Texas that gets an extra, $30 billion, in Florida, another $15 to $20 billion more from the federal government than they pay in, because that comes from New York State. So not only do we keep the power on, the light on, the energy on, and our liberal democracy, which is the model of the country and of the world functioning, but New York State not only does it pay its taxes, it pays more so than its fair share. It's one of those things I think that we should actually have a revolt with our legislatures, start really lifting up the message about how we are paying, $1.25 in compared to a Texas, which is paying like 75 cents in, and other red states that brag about tax and spend, but they actually are tax and loot, and they tax and loot California and New York. I mean, does that ever get you riled up, Assembly member?
It's amazing to me that, unfortunately, being local, you deal with the local commentary, but people aren't able to look beyond the borders like you're talking about, Aaron. And you're absolutely right. Tom DiNapoli is very good about coming out with an annual report of how much New York State is supporting the nation.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing because most people get upset with their members over these local things. They should be irate the fact that we're supporting Indiana.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're Idaho.
Albany's taking money. Go, no. Do you realize the billions that are pouring out of this state and state welfare checks to all these Republicans who are talking about how pro-business they are? They're pro-robbing New York business and pro-robbing New Yorkers.
Well, at least they smile when they do it.
Oh.
They're either smiling or laughing, probably laughing.
Oh, man, I feel for you, Assembly member, because as in this budget cycle, as in many, you have to make tough choices. And as they say, but also bring in new market opportunities. And right now, one of the most significant market opportunities in the state of New York is the green job sector, the Green New Deal. And we basically passed that CLCPA. But at the federal level, there's the IRA, which is the Inflation Reduction Act, which we're pumping tens of billions of dollars into the environment. And the question is, like back when Bill Clinton was playing, are we shovel ready? How do we get shovel ready for this? And one of the things that you are leading up is this Upgrade New York Act. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the
Upgrade New York, to be very clear, is basically the state leading by example in this process, and it's supported by the labor trades, the Sierra Club, which, as you know, you've been a leader with for years, New York's League of Conservation Voters, and many other energy optimizing entities who want to see clean energy become the reality. We're talking about the state of New York taking a leadership role in decarbonizing and finding alternative energy sources for just 15 of their major public facilities throughout the state of New York, which will have an impact on 40% of
Wow.
the energy.
Wow.
And so we're looking at, for example, locally, let's give a local example.
Okay.
It would be
this is
obviously
Albany, because as you know,
Albany,
now with this program,
SUNY Albany is a great example.
State University of New York.
Geothermal is a very real possibility there that could provide enough renewable energy for the whole SUNY Albany campus. And then we have the campus known as the New York State Capitol, which includes the Capitol, the LOB, the Attorney Generals. These are processes that we need to really move the governor in OGS and the Power Authority. And Aaron, you know, we've done this before.
Exactly.
We did this in Arbor Hill. You were a very instrumental role in helping get them to think further out on what we can do. And there's a lot, this is where this coalition's coming together, because it's not only about meeting our goals with CLCPA, and this goes on at Stony Brook. It's also at Binghamton University. It's in other public universities and government buildings throughout the state of New York. But it's also about preparing the workforce. Right. The labor trades have expressed concerns. They, you know, you got to remember, a lot of labor trades focused on fossil fuels. That's where they made their living. Right. But the reality is they want to be part of the solution. They are not trying to be part of the problem. And therefore, it's a conversion. The pipe fitters want to be part of this. The electricians want to be part of this.
Exactly.
And our goal is, when, you know, and I'll say this politely, don't jump on this, but you know, when you read some of the articles in the New York Post, which a lot of people read up here, whether it's, I didn't say it's right, but they read it.
Well, we already know that they're a liamatic after what we're seeing going on with regards to the voting fraud case that Fox. But go ahead. I just want to put out the New York Post is not news. Fox News is not news, and
no, it's not news. It's not news, but a lot of people buy it, and you have to recognize that.
Understood.
So most people, and particularly my district's moderated more, are worried that their gas stoves are going to be stolen by the governor. That's false. It's categorically false.
I saw that scrap metal truck in your backyard. I thought you and all the assembly members are going to go around like soda cans, taking people's gas stoves, man.
Exactly. And you know, there's this fear and unknown of what does an all-electric building mean, and we know this is the wave of the future. We know where we need to move to. However, at the same token, I think government is in a great position not to have to wait several more years, but to move now and demonstrate that, you know what, we're going to walk the walk and talk the talk ourselves. It's $115 million to move this effort forward over the next several years. I don't think it's a terribly large ask when you look at not only the financial benefit for the climate, the financial benefit for the state overall, because reality is these facilities are going to age one way or the other. You're going to have to put money in. You might as well put it in the right direction. And at the same token, it shows that our folks at OGS and that our labor force can make that transition. And I think that's critical. That's give the public some confidence to say, hey, you know that state capitol, or you know that SUNY campus that you all know about? Oh yeah, I know about that. That's all electric. That's all renewable energy. And this is what we're going to do. So that's the sum and substance of what we're trying to accomplish. It's never simple by any stretch of imagination, but you know, no journey has ever been completed if you didn't start. So we got to start.
No, I agree. I go back. I graduated from SUNY when it was still burning in the mid 80s, low sulfur coal. I remember going out on runs and smelling the coal, sulfur in that coal when we were up on the hills. And it's amazing how many of our State University of New York campuses still are anchored in fossil fuels. And I really appreciate you raising the fact that we're training trades for the carbon sector, like our Border Cooperative Educational Service, what we call BOCES, are still trading automobile mechanics that deal with fossil fuel cars. And we really need them right now on electric cars and electric energy.
And that's why we're supporting the ATEC initiative at Hudson Valley, $85 million effort to swap out those gas burning vehicles and train tomorrow's technicians for electric vehicles. That's an effort we're pushing through Hudson Valley right now.
And I'm assuming that you got state ed, all the other players, all the commissioners on board. I mean, what's the push look like from the governor's office?
So to be honest with you, this push only started a month ago. So we're hustling right now. We're
All
behind the
right.
eight ball. We had a very good educational seminar yesterday, and I am trying to get in our one house budget. So is Michelle Hinchy, who's a
Okay.
great partner in the Senate. So we gotta raise a little noise. We
All
gotta
right.
get some energy behind it,
All right.
figuratively and legitimately.
Well,
And
they've been
we,
talking about workforce development for the longest, and you got the Champlain Hudson Power Express cable that's going to be coming down from Canada.
yep,
They're already bringing in, the hundreds of miles of what's it, it's going to be 230 miles or plus of cable going from Hydro Quebec, and so the
all good
jobs,
stuff. All
that's
good
the thing,
stuff.
and so that's coming. The question that you're hitting is the big bottleneck is workforce development and training centers. And so I hope you guys consider, some of the former prisons that have been closed down to convert them to workforce development training centers to do the training on the welding. We need thousands of welders and all that, but we
We
need
should
that
have.
state investment to make it happen.
This is what is so exciting to me, but yet daunting. We have opportunities to create generations of good middle class jobs.
Exactly.
Generations, plain and simple. And listen, we're doing in the South End. Pat Fahey, myself, Neil Breslin, Kerry Werner. We've been supporting the MAP program, which is a pre-apprenticeship program, to get young men and young women in the neighborhood in the South End to
Mm-hmm.
get them. You literally have to grab them off the street and say, "Listen, you got to give this a shot. You got to give it a chance." And we're hoping to finally fill the gap with the financing for the Port of Albany for the Marmon project when it comes to the manufacturing of the wind towers, because that is going to set off a whole nother effort, an all points bulletin for any young man or young woman who wants to have a career and have a good middle class. They're going to have that opportunity. And it's interesting, Aaron. I talk to a variety of people every day. You know that, in
Mm-hmm.
all different walks of life. And there's a lot of people not connected to Albany at all. And they'll say, geez, I hope that Port of Albany project gets off the ground. And you
No,
know
I
what?
hope it do. I hope it does too, because it's a chance for us to shine and our nation to shine. We got the federal push on IRA. We got the state
Yep.
push, the CLCPA. We
People
got
don't realize the importance of the IRA. That federal IRA could not have come at a better time. It's going to have a good 10-year run where we're going to be able to do remarkable things, from converting your own home to creating new generations of jobs.
and that's basically what it comes down to: a real Green New Deal, and having shovel-ready opportunities to make that happen.
Yep.
And Assemblyman, it takes leaders like yourself and others who have their nose and body against the grindstone to really make it happen and pushing forward for that 20 by 30 future. But it begins right now, and it begins right now with the Upgrade New York Act. And again, I want to thank you. We got about 10 seconds, but I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule. And just real quick, is there a website where people can look up if they want to track this bill and track this legislation?
Actually, just type in the Google word New York State Assembly bill search and just do a text search for Upgrade New York. Or I always say, I'm an open book. Email me, mcdonaldj@nyassembly.gov, or call me at 518-365-2569.
I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule this morning to be up at the crack of dawn. And to the Grand Dam of Rotterdam, we're coming over for a wonderful cup of coffee. Assemblyman John T. McDonald, 108th Assembly District, New York State.